The Cavs go 4-0 in their past five. They make a big trade, and we're gearing up for all-star festivities filled with wine and gold. What more could you ask for a weekly award show? Hi, I'm Zach, and welcome to the Sports Ethos Cleveland Cavaliers podcast, your safe space to celebrate and nerd out about the Cavs. And when I say nerd out, you know what I'm talking about. We're talking hoops backed by stats you've actually heard of. To join the discussion, just use hashtag CavsCast on social media. Today, we're going to dive into the biggest moments from the past week in like a day through a series of made-up awards before we look ahead to what's next in terms of matchups on the court, as well as the All-Star break. Let's start, as we always do, with these recap episodes, these weekly awards, with a quick, just short summary of what went down over basically since our last weekly award show. Our schedule is a little bit off here because I was able to get Luka on the pod for Sunday from Real Cavs fans. And if you didn't listen to that episode yet, you should go back and do that after you get done here. But it threw off our scheduling just a little bit. So I figured, why not wait until after Monday's game and just incorporate that into the show as well. So that's what we did. Going all the way back in the Wayback Machine, it started on Sunday in the aftermath of the Luka Doncic trade. Yes, he is currently on the Lakers. He played for the Lakers in a Lakers uniform last night, and it looked really good. It looked rusty, but really good. You can see what that could possibly be with him and LeBron, and I still kind of can't believe that happened. The gutted Mavericks, however, after it happened, were in Cleveland, and they ran into an absolute buzzsaw. The Cavs set a number of franchise records in that game that we're definitely going to talk about in a little bit in the awards section. This ended up being a 144-101 victory for the good guys. 11 Cavs played, 8 scored in double figures, and the starters didn't play more than 24 minutes. The insane shooting, however, did not carry over to the TNT matchup against the Celtics on Tuesday. The Cavs got off to just an absolutely glacial start, scoring just 15 points in the first quarter and letting the Celtics go on a 31-9 run that blended into the second. The Cavs shot 28% from three as a team, and honestly, that was an improvement. At one point, they were down to like 17% while I was tracking it during the game. They finally started to get some to fall in the fourth when they gave themselves a chance, but every time they pulled within a couple possessions, the Celtics had an answer. And it ended up being a 112-105 loss that likely influenced later events of the week. But before that, they took a trip to see our old friend JB Biggerstaff in Detroit on the second night of a back-to-back with Donovan Mitchell out of the lineup. This one felt like it was just going to be the kind of game where they got out in front, they managed the lead, and then they went home with a W. It wasn't pretty, but they were in decent shape for that to be the outcome. And then halftime came. And I don't know what the motivational speech was, but hopefully Kenny never uses it again, because they came out and scored a whopping 21 points in the third quarter with 7 more turnovers after an already sloppy start to the game in the first half, and they gave up 6 offensive rebounds in that quarter alone. Things got chippy down the stretch. Jarrett Allen laid out Asar Thompson with a screen. He must have been fed up with him at that point, because Jarrett Allen doesn't lose his cool like that very often, and if he does, I'm going to venture a guess to say it was warranted. Darius Garland gave us the final fireworks with a game-winning buzzer beater from the logo for a Cavs win, 118-115. Then, on Thursday, the trade deadline got very interesting when the Cavs traded for Karis LeVert and George Niang, as well as some draft pick capital for Atlanta's DeAndre Hunter. We've definitely talked about that in past episodes of the podcast. Huge move by Kobe Altman. The Cavs then closed the week on Friday, shorthanded, already without Dean Wade and Isaac Okoro, but of course, now without Karis LeVert, or George Niang, and they were in DC taking on the Wizards, who had also traded away Kyle Kuzma to the Bucks. And this one felt like the Cavs were, I'm just going to say it. It seemed like they were hungover from the news of the trade, and they might have been playing with their food a little bit, knowing that they were going up against the Washington Wizards. They were favored by like 17 or 18 points against a team who had fewer wins than the Cavs have losses. That's very low, by the way. They got hot in the final corner and they pulled away 134 to 124 to technically end the week. But since, we're a little late on this, we're going to include last night's game too. Monday at home against the Timberwolves, as the arbitrator ruled in favor of Alex Rodriguez and Mark Lore to take over the ownership of the team per Shams, literally right before the game. This one was never in doubt. The Cavs got off to a 16-0 start, and they never looked back. They never trailed, and they led by as many as 26 on their way to a 128-107 win in Cleveland. They let Anthony Edwards get his, scoring 44 points, but it didn't matter. The Cavs outscored them in every quarter except for the fourth, when they cleared the bench for half the quarter. That included the likes of Luke Travers and Imani Bates. It was an absolute buzzsaw kind of night, and a great night to incorporate their new addition, DeAndre Hunter, who obviously we will talk about him a little bit and his fit with the team. But the first night, it was awesome. And it was very clear how he can potentially change this defense. And I guess I use this word and I swear I don't even know if it exists, dynamism on defense. They're just so long. And, we'll talk about the defense a little bit more later in the show. But I thought it was a really positive first introduction for DeAndre Hunter, for somebody who had very limited exposure to the Cavs and their playbook, their sets, their offense, like how they, even defensive principles, like aside from just basic shell, like the complexity to NBA defense is highly, highly underrated, and how much of the game is truly mental and knowing where to help, how to help, and what your what your principles are as a defensive unit with different lineups that are on the floor at a given time. And they have to make those decisions in just nanoseconds, given how sophisticated and how good NBA offenses are. NBA defense is not talked about enough, and he was able to plug right in and be a factor on that end of the floor. He also played well for their offense and provided kind of the spacing that you expected him to in his, again, debut. He's had no time to actually work with he wasn't even, I don't believe, expected to start. The things that I was reading leading into it is that he had been working with the second unit in practice, but Max Strus being injured kind of left them with no real other option. When DeAndre Hunter is sitting there and Max Strus is out, you put DeAndre Hunter into the starting five, and you could see right away, again, with that limited exposure, how seamless and how obvious he should be as that fifth starter, and how he could complement the core four on a night in and night out basis. And man, they are so long. All in all, a 4-1 record since our last award show, and plenty to celebrate, as I mentioned, to do some weekly awards. And we're going to start this one, as usual, with the Like Kendrick Did Big Sean award for Game of the Week. And this one I am giving to the Pistons game where Darius Garland had that game winner. Was it the prettiest game? No. Was I tempted to put the Mavs massacre here? Yes. Yes, I was. But at the end of the day, I went with the walk-off. Darius Garland has been one of the best, if not the best, clutch player in the NBA this year. I legitimately think that he has a case for clutch player of the year. If it was voted on today, I think he should be the winner. The thing is, he hadn't had a signature moment yet. He had like a signature run, if you think back to the Knicks game way early on in the season, but not that signature moment. Unfortunately, the one that he did have was negative. We all remember the 2 clutch free throws he missed in Houston when he could have won the game for him. But now he got his moment, a game winner from the logo, an iconic pose afterwards, emotions running high, a lot of trash talk. Darius Garland called game. The next award we're going to do is the Not Since Wayne Embry Award for Cav of the Week. And this one, I'm going with Kobe Altman for making the DeAndre Hunter trade. Did I say DeAndre Hunter? It kind of sounded like I said DeAndre Hunter, didn't it? DeAndre Hunter. No ha in there. Upgrading the roster while ducking the luxury tax and holding on to the most valuable long-term assets in Jalen Tyson and that 2031 first-round pick is insane work. I did a whole podcast, 30 minutes long, by myself, just breaking this whole trade down the day that it happened. Well, here's some stuff that I've looked up since then and hadn't yet discovered. And I already mentioned how well he played in that first game and what his initial introduction looked like. And so I'm gonna break down, I guess, a few additional numbers that I think are predictive of how he could fit in once he's actually up to speed with the team and not just coming from basically one practice. I did mention, and it's been stated ad nauseum, that he is shooting 39% from three on almost 7 attempts per game this year. More than 5 of those attempts are of the catch and shoot variety, on which he continues to shoot 39%. Nobody on the Cavs shoots as many catch and shoot threes as DeAndre Hunter has this season. The closest is Max Strus at 4.9, so just under 5, and they're shooting at the same efficiency, 39%. So if you can have 2 Max Struses, that's wild. George Niang was at 40% when we had him in the lineup, and he was only getting up 4 a game. Basically, every single one of his 3-point attempts were catch and shoot. Nobody's shocked by that. Karis LeVert was also shooting 40%, but only on 2.5 a game. So he's just as efficient on catch and shoot threes as any of the Cavalier role players, and particularly the ones that are getting those looks on a regular basis, and he's done so on more volume than any of them. He's also shooting 38% on pull-up threes when he takes them. So he's effective from behind the arc on both catch and shoot type looks, and also, he should be getting in for starters, he's going to get a heavy dosage of those playing in this Cavalier offense, but he's also capable when needed to save a play that's breaking down, or when he catches a pass towards the end of a shot clock, not a grenade situation, but low time left or whatever. He is capable of getting a decent look beyond the arc by himself, and that's just looking at the 3-point line, not even mentioning his driving ability, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a minute. Now, it doesn't jump off the stat sheet because he only takes about 1.5 pull-up threes a game, but they're not going to need him to do more than that. Just being capable of doing it once in a while in a bailout moment is more than enough for this Cavs offense. For the Cavs that are currently on the roster, outside of Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, nobody is taking more pull-up threes than DeAndre Hunter. Ty Jerome is taking 1.5 and shooting 40% on them. Karis LeVert was a shade lower at just a little bit over 1 per game, which he did shoot 43% on, but again, just over 1 a game, and that is it. That's it. So he's very comparable to what the Cavs currently get from their most dynamic with the ball role players just at a do you even want to call it a slightly less efficient clip when he's doing it at 38% versus Ty Jerome's 40? Like we're talking very, very comparable. He also drives 6 times a game, and he shoots 52% on those shot attempts that come off of his own drives to the basket. And yes, you probably heard me say some of these numbers when I was talking to Luka. Honestly, I had pulled them for this conversation that I'm having with you right now, and wasn't expecting our discussion at that time to go there. So some of these might sound familiar. But again, it's not mind-blowing numbers necessarily, but it's effective enough in creating a look for himself when they need him to. And for this Cavs team, it's really just going to be in a pinch. For comparison, Karis LeVert drove 7 times per game and shot 43% on those attempts. So one more drive than DeAndre Hunter does. He's not the passer that LeVert has been. LeVert passed about half the time that he drove. And funnily enough, as I was looking into this, and I know I mentioned some of this with Luka as well, Evan Mobley drives 6.5 times a game and shoots 52% on those looks. So Hunter is basically as effective driving to score as Evan Mobley has been this season. Hunter also passes 25% of the time to Evan Mobley's 26%. So it is actually a really solid comp when you put like Hunter and Evan Mobley next to each other when they put the ball on the deck and go to the basket. They are basically achieving the same results. So if you're good with what Evan Mobley has been able to do when he goes to the basket, then I think you're going to be fairly happy with what we're able to get on the offensive end from DeAndre Hunter, assuming he keeps it up, because he's doing basically the same effectiveness as Evan Mobley going to the basket. And as I mentioned earlier, really, really good on catch and shoot threes. But I want to bring up one last thing about his shooting from beyond the arc. He is shooting 47% on wide open threes this year, which is defined as a defender 6 or more feet away. This Cavs offense generates over 20 wide open threes per game, which is 8th in the NBA. DeAndre Hunter should be getting a steady diet of just wide open catch and shoot threes on this team and be able to absolutely feast in those opportunities. And the one thing of note is that he hasn't shot a ton from the corners. I know I have mentioned this and heard this in the past as well, that he only shoots like 38.5% from the corners coming with his time in Atlanta. That was on only 70 attempts this year. So not a massive sample size. And those attempts were evenly distributed between the left and right corners on the court. This is what was interesting to me. He shot 42% from the left corner and 34% from the right. That's how we got to the combined 38.5. And ironically, the shot chart looked like the Cavs 3-point shooting as a whole, especially earlier in the season. I did a video on my solo YouTube channel where I was breaking down where and how the Cavs were getting their 3-point looks, and it was super weird to me that that right corner was just like cursed. He's going to fit into that just perfectly well. Just have him run to the left corner instead of the right. That's it. That's it. Overall, he's shot better from the left side of the floor as well. So, and like that includes above the break. So look for Kenny, I think, to see that in the data and put him in those positions to be successful. Don't be surprised if you don't see DeAndre Hunter doing a lot of his work on the left side of the floor in the offense. I bring all this up to maybe ease the minds, I think, of some fans who might be worried a little bit about the loss of Niang's shooting. and the creation of Karis LeVert, DeAndre Hunter replicates a lot of what those guys did well while adding new skills and significant size to the mix that they didn't have. And he's really tailor-made for this Cavaliers team on both ends of the floor. And Kobe Altman, getting back to why he's the Cav of the week, swooped in and he got him on the cheap, all things considered. Karis LeVert was an expiring contract, and George Niang was a guy who had questions about his ability to play in a playoff rotation and possibly a contract that they might have looked to get off of next year when they were in the second apron. So doing that and not giving up Jalen Tyson, not giving up the future 2031 first round pick is huge, and getting yourself under the luxury tax line. It was just fantastic work by a GM who is going all in on this team and giving it the best chance to win a title this year, and looking ahead with somebody that fits perfectly well into your financial window and the age range, and from a skill and need perspective with the core of your roster. Home run by Kobe Altman. That's why he's the Cav of the week. The next award that we're going to do is the Miseducation of the Cavaliers Award for X Factor of the Week. And for this one, I'm going to go with Max Strus. Honestly, he played well all week long. Even when the shot didn't fall, he was effective in his minutes. But he's getting this award for when he did have it going in the game against the Wizards. The Cavs really didn't have their best stuff, all in all. But they made a run in the fourth quarter that was able to get it done. And Max Strus was a huge part of that run. He scored 8 of his 17 points in 8 minutes in the final quarter. He hit a couple of big threes. It was 2 of his 5 threes that he made in the game. And he threw a really pretty alley-oop to Evan Mobley that was basically all she wrote for this game. From there, they coasted to a 10-point win. And they don't do it without Max Strus. I'm not going to call him the forgotten man or anything like that, because that feels like an exaggeration to me. But I do think that we are sort of just used to him being able to go on these runs where he hits 2 or 3 dagger threes in a row, or, what makes a play, and that we've sort of taken for granted a little bit. And I just want to give him a moment here, because we are incredibly lucky as a fan base for this team to have that luxury. I assume you listened to my last podcast breaking down that DeAndre Hunter trade, so I'm not going to go into everything there, but there was a section of that episode, where my last solo episode, where I talked about Max Strus's effectiveness. But the cliff notes of it is that in a small sample size, Max Strus being back in the mix for this Cavaliers team, his net rating with the core 4 is an insane, plus 16.6. And as a starter, it's a plus 16.8. And I wouldn't go as far as to call him an enforcer by any means, but he does play with an edge to him. And I think that's really good for this team. So when I think of an X factor, I think of a guy like Max. And in this game in particular that we're talking about, he truly showed us why. The next award that we are going to do is this is your moment, and every single minute you're in it, try to hold on to it because you may never get it again award for quote of the week. And this is Kobe Altman about that DeAndre Hunter trade that he made. He said, "We can't just rest on record. We can't just rest on chemistry and good vibes. It's an arms race in the East." And this is what I've been saying since this team got off to their hot start at the beginning of the season. Now, this podcast didn't exist the entire time, so you might not have heard me say it, but I'm not taking a, quote unquote, I told you so moment here, but I am taking a I completely agree moment here. I saw a lot of fans on X or Twitter as the Cavs were like uh, going on their hot start to begin the season. And after basically every single win, they were taking a victory lap. Stuff like, see, this team never needed to make a trade. If you thought they needed a wing, you're stupid. Stop saying they need a big wing. Look how great they are. Oh my gosh, they can't win without a wing, and all of that. I'm sure you saw the tweets from various people. This is not a shot at any one individual person. It was all over the place. And my response to this line of thinking is that it's simply prisoner of the moment. And in fact, the way that they started the season to me was justification for the opposite. Them getting out to the start that they did suggested that the potential of this team was even higher than we expected it to be, at least that I did. I predicted a 50-win team and a 4 seed coming into the season. Not exactly low expectations, but they've clearly been on pace to exceed them beyond my wildest imagination. But that doesn't mean that the team and the roster was ever flawless. And if you believe this team could have a real chance at a title, then you should want them turning over every stone possible to address every concern they can in pursuit of said title. The hot start isn't an excuse to stand pat and say, no, we're good. It's a reason to be aggressive. And that's what Kobe Altman is saying here. And that's what he did by going out and getting DeAndre Hunter. Not ignoring your flaws because they haven't bit you when it counted yet. Doing whatever you can to go for it while the window is open. As a fan of a team, that should literally be your only goal, not cap space in the future or future draft picks. Sure, those things are great for PR, a message that can be spun to a fan base that there's hope when your team sucks and you don't want them throwing around like irresponsible picks into trades that don't make any sense and blowing all their assets on moves that aren't worth it. I'm looking at you, Matt Ishbia. But when your team is good, you just want them to do whatever they can to win the thing that they're playing for, right? And Kobe Altman did that on Thursday. And he did it while also keeping some ammunition available, keeping the future in mind so that when the bill comes due with the aprons, there are still going to be ways for them to have some cheap young talent on this roster. Does this move guarantee that they're going to win a title? No. It's not KD going to the Warriors that needed KD to beat your Cavs. But it's the exact kind of move that suggests the front office recognizes an opportunity that is sitting right in front of them. And rather than sit tight and hope that they can just scheme away any of their flaws and that all the guys will be 100% healthy and playing at 100% of their potential, and you're just going to be able to figure it out, they're embracing the moment and going for it. The next word that we're going to do is the I know I can be what I want to be. If I work hard at it, I'll be where I want to be. Award for Moment of the Week. And this one is from before last night's game. Depending on when you're listening to this, is Monday against the Timberwolves. There were some videos that were going around on social. I saw Mikey McNuggets. I saw Cameron Justice, as well as the official Cavs account had this. There might have been more that I just didn't see as far as original sources for the videos, not just people who were retweeting them, because there was plenty of that too. And it was worth it because the video shows just this little kid, probably 2 or 3 years old, out on the court during pregame shoot around. And Darius Garland starts interacting with this child. And not just like waving and smiling. He sits down on the floor and he gets into a completely engaged conversation with this little kid. He giving high fives and just talking the way that you talk to kids, you know? And a couple people eventually come out. I assume these are the parents of the child. And Darius doesn't go anywhere. He just keeps talking with this kid and he poses for pictures with him. And maybe it's the dad in me, but that was incredibly wholesome to watch. This little kid wearing a Darius Garland jersey is just hanging out on the floor with Darius Garland. And they're both just laughing and having genuine fun. McNuggets tweeted that the interaction lasted like 5 minutes. And I believe it. One of the videos that Cameron posted was almost 2 full minutes on its own. And it's definitely not starting from the beginning of the interaction. Beyond his play on the court, Darius Garland is giving us a lot of reasons to root for him. And he continues to ascend in the league. And the NBA, hell, the world needs more Darius Garlands in it. So the next award that we're going to do is the Who Says Redundancy is a Bad Thing award for Award of the Week. Get it? And for this one, I've got two, and they both go to Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell was named Eastern Conference Player of the Week for the previous week, which is obviously a great in-season honor. This is an award that he's now won twice by my count, the first coming back in early November. And this is the fourth time that a Cavalier has achieved it. Garland also has two, to his credit, one in November when they did it back-to-back, and he also got one in mid-January. But then that wasn't it. Donovan Mitchell was also named Greater Cleveland Sports Awards Professional Athlete of the Year. This is the 25th time that they've had the Greater Cleveland Sports Awards. It's held by the Greater Cleveland Sports Commission, and the categories range from top male and female high school athletes all the way up to the professional ranks. And that's where Donovan Mitchell beat out guys like J-Ram from the Guardians, Denzel Ward from the Browns, and Olympic pole vaulter Katie Moon. And honestly, we shouldn't be shocked. Donovan Mitchell's about as good a guy as there is, it seems, in the world. So very, very, very well deserved. I believe Dan Gilbert took home an award from that as well. But now that I'm saying it out loud, I realize I didn't write down what the name of that award was. But big award week for Donovan Mitchell on the award show podcast. The next award that we are going to do is the Not Like Us award for Record of the Week. And how about 5 of them from the same game? 50 in a quarter, 91 in a half, a halftime lead of 45, 16 threes and a half, which tied a record, and 26 threes in a game, all happening in the Mavericks game. The Mavs were in a total state of disarray after Nico Harrison's ego stroke trading away Luka Doncic. Let me say on the record, I've been vocal about my opinions of how bad the trade that Nico made was. In my opinion, the man just voluntarily threw his hat in the ring for worst trade in NBA history, but he's a human being. I believe he has a family, and he doesn't deserve some of the things that are being reported for making a basketball trade. The world has much, much bigger problems. That said, it was a dumb trade, and they were rolling out a team with no Luka, no Kyrie, no AD or Max Christie, who actually matters now. The Cavs came out, put it on them, and they didn't let up. The next award that we are going to do is the There's not enough Wolfsbane potion in the Wizarding world to hold in this Beast award for performance of the week. And honestly, I was originally going to give this to Evan Mobley for his game against the Pistons. And then the Wolves game happened. And now I'm giving it to Evan Mobley. He was a dominant force on both ends of the court against the Wolves. He posted his 23rd double-double of the season with 28 points and 10 rebounds. 4 of those boards were on the offensive end, and he added in 6 assists for good measure. He shot 12 of 19 from the field, which is 63%. And on the other end of the court, 4 blocks, 2 steals. He was everywhere. And it amounted to a plus 15 in the box score while he was out there. And this team is just different when Evan Mobley plays like that. This is the game where the KG comparisons come to life. He's just so long, so disruptive, so dynamic. Add whatever superlative you want. He was that against the Timberwolves. The next award that we're going to do is the Rick James. And that'll make more sense in a minute. Award for Laugh of the Week. And it starts with a quote. And the quote is game blouses. That's how Darius Garland ended his comments, recounting the game winner that he had against the Pistons. And it's just one of the funny parts. Personally, I think it's funny because what in the world is blouses? I was just starting to get used to the way that people are giving flowers. Now I got to figure out what blouses are when we're not talking about an article of clothing. As a matter of fact, I had to look it up. And now I'm glad I did. According to Urban Dictionary, which I'm sure is nothing but facts and truth, it's not a new thing. First of all, blouses started out kind of gross. While it does have context in this form as well, it also means something like describing an activity of scrolling through women's blouses in order to look at what's under the blouses, typically an activity done by teenagers, and that was not appropriate at all for the moment. Although I guess funny in its own way, I guess. There's apparently a term for that behavior that I didn't know existed, and now I do, and I'm never not going to know that. Probably, I don't know. I'll forget at some point. But game blouses in particular is actually a thing. And I thought maybe someone was just very, very quick to add it after this game, and that is not the case. So either this has been a very popular thing for a while, or Darius Garland is a fan of Dave Chappelle because it's actually described as a game-ending taunt dished out by the winning team in any competition, usually when a final winning blow occurs. But here's where it brought me the most joy, because it's actually a reference to the Chappelle Show and was added to this site back in 2010. Apparently, in a skit, Charlie Murphy used this term, game blouses, when he beat Prince in basketball on the show. And I got to tell you, that is my formidable era, and I do not remember game blouses. But if you think I'm not going to find a way to use this in my everyday life now, you are sadly mistaken. But that wasn't the only thing that I found funny about it. In his locker room media availability, he also described the play inbounding to George, getting it back. He said, high cross, and Donovan Mitchell interrupts him. And he says, Who did you cross? And Garland replied, Thompson. And Mitchell says, yep. And from there, he continues to recount while rubbing his face that the high cross on Thompson and then the pull up from the logo, and then he ends it with game blouses. But Thompson, that's the guy that Jarrett Allen laid out on that screen at the end of the game. And Mitchell making it a point to call him out individually here is absolute chef's kiss for locker room vibes. These dudes are competitors, And Thompson had obviously gotten on their nerves. And Mitchell made sure to get one more jab in while the wound was fresh. Game blouses. The next award. The next award that we're going to do is It's Me Against the World, baby, for Leader of the Week. And this is going to Donovan Mitchell after the Celtics loss and his message to Evan Mobley, who didn't play particularly well in that game. It was, in short, don't trip. Don't trip at all. He described how fans and people will say things about how he played in whatever game, no matter what happens. People will complain about something regardless. You could score 50 and miss one free throw, and people are going to say something about that free throw. He reminded us all that Evan Mobley is an all-star for a reason, and how dominant he's been on both ends of the floor for this Cavs team. And he wasn't the only one to stick up for Mobley after the game. Jarrett Allen had his back too. Kenny Atkinson had his back. And Donovan went on to talk about how he talks to Evan about his development and how he needs to do a better job himself of getting Mobley the ball and make it easier for him. Not just make it on Mobley to create for himself and grab the ball and go. And he encouraged Mobley to be more vocal about it. And this is the leadership that we've talked about all year with Donovan. Empowering and uplifting the other guys, mentoring the other guys. It's rubbing off, too, on guys like Jarrett Allen, who's echoing the same sentiments in his own interview. And you need that camaraderie, that togetherness, that unified voice. You see it loud after wins, but you need it even more after losses. And they have that. And I think they're going to continue to have it even after bringing in a guy like DeAndre Hunter into the mix. It sucks to lose the other guys. LeVert and Niang, by all accounts that I trust anyways, Niang was the glue. But as long as Mitchell is leading like this, they can get through and be better moving forward. And by the way, if you want to see any of that interview, I suggest the cut that Spin Davies put together because it has all of those things like compiled into one spot. I love those supercuts. The next award that we're going to do is the Play Stupid Games, Win Stupid Prizes Award for Dog of the Week. And it's going to Jarrett Allen for his screen, Flagrant 2. The moment in the Pistons game where Jarrett Allen sets that hard screen on Asar Thompson, which I truly did not believe rose to the level of Flagrant 2 and deserve an ejection. He didn't load up. He didn't drop his shoulder. He set a hard screen, and he stood tall and firm like a statue. I understand with the little extra that he gave him with the arms, you can call it a flagrant 1. I'm not here with fan-colored glasses saying that it wasn't even a foul or anything. But I thought flagrant 2 was excessive and might have been more of an attempt to avoid an escalation at the end of this game that was clearly getting chippy. But as I mentioned earlier, if Jarrett Allen has gotten to the point where he's willing to lay you out and just walk straight to the bench and sit down, you've earned it. And I personally like it. See, I didn't think the play was dirty. It's not Draymond Green. There's no chest stomp. There's no choke out. There's no kick in the junk, punch in the face, whip around. Man, can you believe that Draymond Green is still allowed to play in the NBA? Anyways, it was a hard screen in a physical game. And he didn't grab his arm and pull. He didn't take a guy out in midair. He didn't do anything dirty, just physical. Too physical to be allowed without a whistle, but physical. And for a guy who's taken some criticism for being soft or nice or whatever, I like to see him show some edge. You need that on a championship caliber team. You need your guys to have a little bit of FU in them. They need to show that dog is in there, and they're not going to take your crap. They're not going to roll over. You can't just intimidate them. And if you try to get chippy or dirty, there will be repercussions for it. And that's what I saw out of Jarrett Allen on that play. He didn't give in to the fake tough guy act afterwards either. Real tough guys don't tell you how tough they are. They don't go out of their way to show you. He laid down the law that he felt he needed to. Nothing extra. And when Malik Beasley comes in and tries to shove him afterwards, he doesn't retaliate to any of that. He walks coolly to the bench and waits on a decision. Plenty of guys doing the fake, hold me back, hold me back. Jarrett Allen just sat down. Real tough. The next award that we are going to do, we got a lot of awards in this one. I should probably go faster. The next award is this isn't the first time we've seen a play get scrapped around here, award for 3 of the week. And it's that Darius Garland game winner. I've talked about it plenty and how important it was. Obviously, it won a game, but let's just recount the play one more time. 5 seconds left on the clock. Cade Cunningham hits a free throw to tie the game at 1:15. He almost left it short, but the friendly bounce twice on the rim gave him the hometown discount. Darius Garland inbounds to Georges Niang, who gives it right back to him on the move. 3 Piston defenders around him, and he dribbles up the floor. He puts a crossover on Asar Thompson, who lunges for a steal. He rises up from center court at the logo and just drains it. Nothing but the bottom as the buzzer sounds. He strikes a pose, and his teammates swarm him. And according to Kenny Atkinson and Garland after the game, they both said that there was a different play set up for Sam Merrill coming off a pin down. But Garland knew he was going to shoot, and you knew it was going in as soon as it left his hand. Perfection. The next award is it's not about touching the rim, it's about throwing it down. Award for Dunk of the Week. Also in the Detroit game, perhaps a bit of a forgotten gem, but not by me. In the first half, Max Strus put Jalen Duren on a poster. With 2:25 left in the first half, there was a scramble for a loose ball. Garland's on the floor. Allen winds up with it somehow and finds Strus at the top of the key, at which point Max Strus changes into Calvin Cambridge's sneakers from Like Mike, drives down the lane, and throws in a one-hander over Jalen Duren for an and one. It was a little bit Blake Griffin-ish. And when I say threw it in, I mean that literally, but it was definitely not a fluke. Jalen Duren is listed at 6'10". He's a very athletic young center with a lot of promise, and he averages 1.2 blocks per game in 25 minutes. There are only 24 guys in the whole league averaging more blocks than that, and half of them play more minutes a night than Jalen Duren does. Thus, have more opportunities to block shots. Is he a great defender? No, he's not. Opponents shoot like 67% against him at the rim, but he's still not a slouch, and he's not the guy that you expect Max Strus, of all people, to rise over and dunk on. The final award that we are going to do for this show is the come one, come all for the just freakishly long circus show award for D of the Week. Did you like that one? I made that one up on the spot because I forgot to write something down for the silly name of the award. Anyways, the whole team is getting this award for the Timberwolves game in the first quarter. They held them scoreless past the 6-minute mark to open the game. DeAndre Hunter got the start, and he was starting off guarding Ant. And they were up like 13-0 when he subbed out for the first time after he picked up his second foul, which was ticky-tacky, but you liked the aggressiveness that he was playing with. And just seeing him out there with Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen, they are so long. Listen to these wingspans. DeAndre Hunter, 7'2". Evan Mobley, 7'4". Jarrett Allen, 7'6". Even Donovan Mitchell, who's not tall, he still has a wingspan of 6'10". Darius Garland's the only starter on this team that's a normal human being. And he still has a wingspan of like 6'5", which isn't that bad for a 6'1" point guard. Hunter being added to this team just seems unfair defensively. Once Kenny figures out how to best utilize all the length that he has, it's going to be so incredibly apparent how important this trade was for them in adding that piece into the mix. In the whole first quarter, the Cavs were up 30-12. I saw a stat that it was the 5th fewest points scored in a quarter like all year this year. They held the Wolves to 2 of 21 from the field, which is second fewest opponent made buckets in franchise history. I got both those stats from Evan Dammerel on X. They were 1 of 11 from 3. Both of those percentages are under 10%. The Cavs forced them into 5 turnovers. Anthony Edwards had just 5 points on 1 of 7 in the first quarter. And while the Wolves got some scoring going after that, you can't hold a team to 48 points in the NBA. It was just an absolute master class on the defensive end to start the game. And I thought fully worthy of an extra award being thrown out there. So that's it. A whole bunch of awards this week. Obviously, if you want to nominate your own ever, just use hashtag CavsCast on social media. Follow the show page at EthosCavs. Next up for the Cavs are just 2 games, or just 1 game now, actually, before the All-Star break. It's tomorrow night. They take tomorrow, if you're listening to this on Tuesday as I'm recording it. They have the Toronto Raptors before they get a week off. Some of the guys get a week off. The coaching staff, Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, and Darius Garland are all headed to the Bay Area for All-Star Weekend. We're going to see Mitchell and Mobley team up for the skills challenge. Darius Garland is going to be in the 3-point contest. And then in the game, which I'm using air quotes for because it's actually a 4-team mini tournament, Darius and Evan wound up teammates on Team Kenny, which has all guards on it: Brunson, Cade, Anthony Edwards, Tyler Hero, and Garland. Then they also have Evan Mobley, Jaren Jackson Jr., and J-Dub. Those are the only bigs. And I'm not even sure you can call J-Dub a big. He's just a front court player. Donovan ended up on Team Chuck, which is all bigs. Giannis, who has actually been replaced now in the game by Trae Young. So I guess another guard. But they also have Jokic, Şengün, Siakam, Kat, and Wemby on that team. And Trae Young is going to join Donovan Mitchell and SGA in the backcourt. It's kind of like the TNT guys got together and decided to make some sort of weird backroom bet that they could only draft certain player types because Kenny has all the guards, Chuck has all the bigs, and Shaq got all the wings. Regardless, it's going to be fun to see these guys from the Cavs out there messing around and Kenny and the coaching staff out there coaching too. So it gives us a reason to tune into All-Star Weekend, which is at least the game portion. I don't know what to expect this year. It's just going to be odd. So we don't need to do a most dangerous game because there's only one left. It's the Raptors. So I guess that's it. If you made it to the end of this episode, please leave a like. If you're on YouTube, rate the show 5 stars in a podcast app. If you're using it right now, it would certainly go a long way to helping out the show. Let me make sure that this notification doesn't mean anything. Yeah, it's not for the Cavs, but in case you care, Alex Len is going to sign a deal with the Los Angeles Lakers, who needed a center after they rescinded the Mark Williams trade. So there you go. Next time you hear from me, I'm actually going to be joined by Mikey McNuggets. We're going to do a bit of an award show, but it's going to be for the full look at the pre-All-Star break season for the Cavs. I'm really looking forward to having that conversation with Mikey. Now that the show is over, go ahead and open up your app store and download the Sports Ethos app for one of the best blurb feeds in the business. Cavs players, fantasy tools, news, all of it. It's in there. Sports Ethos app. Download it for free right now. As always, I'm Zach. Thanks for nerding out with me, Cavs fans.